Hello everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Be Candid with me, your host Amber. Today is a very sunny day. It's literally one of the hottest days so far this year. I reckon we're at 23 degrees here in Brixton, and I'm wearing a mishmash of an outfit, but I thought it'd be fun to come on here and talk about living alone, being alone, and kind of my tips and tricks for figuring out like how to spend time by yourself, just because I think it's a thing more and more people are doing, like living by themselves, and obviously with lockdown and everything. And I've definitely picked up some tricks along the way throughout lockdown, so I wanted to chat through that with you. I will talk you through the current situation of what I've got on and all of those fun things and a few life updates, because that's how we like to start the podcast over here. So I'm currently wearing a new bikini because 23 degrees, you best believe I'm going to be sitting in the sun, from Nasty Gal, which is like pink and blue. I've got some yellow linen shorts on that I thrifted, which fit like a dream. And I've also got a patchwork crochet cardigan on, which I made myself and will probably come off at some point because it's kind of warm, but I've had to keep the like curtains in my bedroom closed so that the room doesn't overheat. So hopefully we'll be all good. But in terms of little life updates, this is the first podcast I am recording in the middle of the day, which I don't know how that's going to go because we live very close to a primary school. So if you hear anyone shrieking, laughing, messing around, it's probably the kids outside. And our street is like a hive of activity during the day, so I usually wait until the evening when things have kind of settled down a bit. But I wanted to be a bit more productive and like efficient with my time and try and record a podcast every Tuesday at lunch, just because then I'm like using an hour of my day a bit more productively than just like sat watching YouTube. And also it means that I'm ahead of schedule, ready for next Tuesday, because my podcast episodes come out every Tuesday. So feels better that I'm like recording on the same day I'm uploading, but just a week prior, if that makes sense. Then in terms of little life updates, it's currently the 30th of March, so we are having Easter weekend this weekend, which means a four-day weekend, which, as you can tell, I'm very excited about. I could barely even say the words. And we're going to be heading down to Bournemouth to see my mum's new puppy, Archie, who I've mentioned a lot on this podcast. I still haven't met him. I think he's about 11 weeks, maybe 12 weeks by now, so he'll be a little bigger, obviously, than he was when he was a fresh new puppy, but a puppy nonetheless, and one I'm really looking forward to meeting. Apparently he's such a sweetie, so really looking forward to that, as well as obviously just catching up with my mum, because we haven't seen anyone since Christmas, which is probably, I want to say, the longest time I've been away from my family, or like haven't gone down to Bournemouth. So that's going to be kind of interesting to get reacquainted with everyone, catch up with everyone. Obviously we've been FaceTiming and things in between, but for the most part, like, we haven't really seen each other, so that's going to be really nice, because obviously now in the UK you can meet up with 6 people or 2 households outdoors, which I'm so grateful for. I have got so many fun things booked in with people coming up, like all outdoor based, but with this sunshine I'm not complaining, and I'm just so happy that I get to like broaden my bubble a little bit, I guess, like see some new people who I haven't seen in a really long time, and just start having the summer that we all know we deserve. So very excited for that. So before we get into today's topic, I do just want to say, obviously, if this isn't your first episode you're listening to, if you are a repeat customer, you've been here before, thank you so much for clicking on this podcast again. But also please do go ahead and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, because it means so much to me, and it's really cool to see what you guys think of the podcast. And if you want more info or behind the scenes or any of the above, make sure you go and head over to Instagram and follow us at Be Candid Podcast, because I post a lot of fun things over on there, so you can get caught up throughout the week as well as Tuesdays. Okay, so getting used to being alone, living alone, it's a really strange concept. And I think the hardest part for me personally, like, I had always lived with family up until uni, where I pretty much lived on my own. I was in a house with like 6 people, but we didn't really get on, like in student accommodation, so I was pretty much by myself. And then in 3rd year of university, I want to say, I spent like 2 or 3 months, maybe longer than that, living by myself in a house until Christian, my boyfriend, moved up to London and we lived together. So I've definitely experienced some time living by myself, and it was a bit of a shock to the system. And I think the biggest thing I struggled with, like living by myself, was just the boredom of it. I think I realised that I rely a lot on other people, or used to rely a lot on other people for entertainment and conversation and, I don't know, just things of interest. Like I wouldn't really find that by myself, and that was something that was a big struggle for me, and kind of a weird thing to get your head around, because it's like, oh, I don't have anyone who I can talk to or to just like hang out with, so what the heck am I going to do by myself? So I've come up with like a list of fun things that you could try to maybe fill up some time by yourself, as well as like some tips that really helped me to, I don't know, set myself up a bit better and kind of get used to the thought of living by myself. And we're going to close off with some influencers I love, who I think you should follow along with, who either live by themselves or just have like a really independent lifestyle or mindset, and I think that will be really useful to you guys to like follow along and get some tips from them as well. I think the other thing people struggle with, or the idea of being alone or living alone, seems really scary, because you have this idea that you're going to have to be like sat alone in your own thoughts, and sometimes that can be quite scary because there's not necessarily like distractions, or as many distractions, shall we say. And I think when people say like, oh, you're going to be by yourself, you just imagine yourself like sat in a corner, just reflecting on your thoughts, being with yourself, being with your own whirlwind of a mind, and that really doesn't have to be the case. So I think the first thing I personally needed to do when I like moved into the house by myself and things was just make myself feel comfortable, like make myself feel safe in that space, because I found that as soon as I had things that were familiar to me, as soon as I felt safe in that space, noises and things that you would hear or whatever when you're living by yourself weren't as scary, because you're kind of confident in the area you're in or in the space you're in. So my first few tips of that would be, obviously, like if you need to set up a routine where you check your front door is locked, you check the windows are locked, whatever it is, definitely implement that, even just for your own sake. Like me personally, as soon as I got home from work, I would just like lock the door behind me, and it was just like one less thing that I had to worry about, and meant like if I heard a bang or whatever, like if I was in the shower or something, I would know like, oh my gosh, maybe I left, like I wouldn't have to think maybe I left the front door open or maybe I left the back door open, because I had already done all of that. So that was just something that gave me a bit of peace of mind, as well as just decorating the house or whatever space you're in a way that makes you feel good. So I had loads of candles and blankets and things, and just made it a bit of like a safe haven. And it's really fun decorating by yourself, because you don't have to appeal to anyone else's like likes or dislikes, or how they do their daily routine, or how they like to set up their space, or anything like that. Like the whole area is yours to play with, to get creative with, and to express yourself with. So I really enjoyed that, especially having like shared a room with my sister and like living in a house that my mum owned. So obviously she had like decorated it and everything. It was then kind of my chance to put things where I wanted and to mess things up and to get creative with it. So that was really, really fun. And again, just made it feel like mine, so I wasn't like in a stranger, like in a foreign place or anything. It wasn't like, it didn't feel like a rental property, or that a property that wasn't mine, or that I could be intruded on at any point, because I had set up my space to kind of reflect me, so I could feel really comfortable that in that space and like at ease, which I think is the most important thing. I will say, for me personally, it was like a transition moving into my own space by myself and learning to be alone. So for a while I did have to have like voices on in the background, whether that be the radio on in the kitchen, which I think it sounds really old-fashioned now, like having a radio on, but I really enjoy having the radio on. It's something we always had at my family home. The radio would always be on in the kitchen, and that way it just kind of gave a bit of continuity between the new places that I was living with, the old places that I had lived, and also again just made me feel like less alone, because I could hear other people talking. So whether that is a radio in the kitchen, whether that's a podcast on in your bedroom, or whatever it is, maybe it's even sleeping with a podcast, which I know a lot of people really enjoy, just to help like calm their mind or distract them from their own thoughts, because I do think it's a learning process on how to kind of sit with yourself in the moment. Like it's not necessarily something you're taught to do or something you have to do very often when you're living in a house with like 4, 5, 6 other people, or however many people are in your family. So it's really interesting to kind of get used to the silence that comes with living by yourself. So it was definitely a transition for me, but the radio really helped. I'm a big fan of Wave 105 if you're a southerner like me. And then I think once you've started getting used to like being by yourself, so you don't need as many distractions in terms of like the TV on or a documentary on or whatever, once those distractions start to like take more of a background seat rather than like you're really conscious that they are distracting you from other things, I think it's really important to introduce like hobbies that you can do by yourself. So independent hobbies, or ones that I guess you can share with friends but are mostly just for you. And I find this just really fun way to distract myself, because I am one of those people, like if I'm bored, I'll like annoy a friend or like FaceTime them or something, or like I'll just snack on random crap or watch rubbish TV shows that I really don't need to watch. Like I've been watching Are You the One on Netflix. It is such crap, but it is so good. So I would just find myself spending hours on those kind of shows, where I found I can be way more productive with my time and more creative and just have more fun with it. So the first of these solo hobbies, I think it's going to be very obvious, and I don't want to intimidate anyone by this, but it's just journaling. Now I say intimidate because I think when you're first living by yourself, journaling does kind of fit into the box of reflecting on your thoughts, which can seem scary when you're living by yourself. I don't know why, but it does. But you can really journal about anything, and what I like about it is it takes up maybe like 10 minutes of my day, because I've inputted it into my morning routine. So it then takes up like a chunk of my day where I can concentrate on something else other than just like being bored or realizing I'm alone or realizing I have no one to talk to. Again, it just kind of acts as a distraction, I guess. And saying that, you obviously don't have to journal about your deepest thoughts and emotions and feelings. You can journal about anything. I journal about things I'm going to pack for the weekend, or food I need to buy, or I do journal prompts so that they're kind of, it's not me being like innovative, I guess, or like coming up with certain things to talk about, because maybe like I don't really know what to talk about, or I've got a bit of like a writer's block. You can get really cool prompts for like any subject of journaling, so you can use those to kind of express yourself and have a bit of fun with, and it doesn't have to be super serious, but it's just nice to have that written down somewhere to either look back on at a later date, or just know that you've taken some time to kind of work through whatever's buzzing around in your mind, or you've planned ahead a little bit for the week or things like that. So I really enjoy journaling, and again, it's just something quick and simple you can really do by yourself. Saying that though, there are like journal challenges which you can get involved in. So if you are looking to set up an online community, or you want to find an online community to kind of make you feel less alone even though you're living alone, or you are like living by yourself, you can definitely find those like on Instagram. There are certain like journal challenges, and then people like post their inputs or like their designs and things. So definitely check those out as well, because I think they can be really fun and just a way to kind of stay connected, as well as like make sure you're on top of your journal game, but like sticking with it every day, because people are relying on you and expecting it from you, so it just keeps you a little bit accountable, but can also be a really, really fun challenge to set for yourself. The next subject I want to talk about, I think, is kind of niche, but it's crocheting. Like I said, I'm wearing a freaking patchwork crochet cardigan, which I did make myself. I don't know if I said that before, but ever since I think it was Christmas, I saw a video of someone crocheting. I was like, oh, that looks kind of fun. And then before I knew it, my boyfriend had surprised me with like a full crochet set, which was so sweet, and it's come in so handy because I've been crocheting so much stuff. And again, it's just a hobby that you can only really do by yourself. I guess you could sit with another person and crochet, but it's unlikely that you'd be like working on the same project or something. So it's just like an arty moment, you know. I can just sit by myself, create something, which is so fun because I have like an end product at the end of it. I can see the process of it and have that kind of satisfaction of creating something, which is so fun. And I also find it super calming because the pattern that you crochet in, or like the certain styles you do, can sometimes be quite rhythmic because you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So it really like calms my mind, which I really enjoy. And also you can obviously learn a new skill set from it because there are so many different types of crochet. And if you do end up producing something that you think is pretty cool, you can gift it to someone. So I've made Christian a hat, I've made me a cardigan, I've made me a bag, I've made my sister Phoebe a hat which looks like a strawberry, and it's so freaking cute. She actually requested it. She was like, do you think your crocheting skills could make this? I was like, oh, I'll give it a go, and I'm really proud with how it came out. So I have spent a lot of time crocheting. I will say that it's been like my biggest hobby recently. I would say I probably spend like 3 hours a day, like minimum, crocheting, which is kind of insane, but it's just so fun to do. Like you can do it whilst watching a show, you can do it like whilst revising kind of thing, because you really don't have to concentrate on it that hard. So it's kind of like a background hobby, I guess, or a background task, which just like distracts you a little bit again and kind of keeps your hands busy and keeps your brain a little bit busy. So I've been really enjoying it. I will also say, if you are like living by yourself or you're trying to be alone and you can feel yourself like getting bored or wanting to call a friend or like feeling anxious that you're by yourself, cleaning or working out or doing like a productive task can be so satisfying and such a good distraction for like being alone, because you have that sense of accomplishment when you've done it. Like you have a sense of pride, I guess, because you've either cleaned up your space or you've done something good for yourself in terms of a workout. And they can be really quick or they can be really long, which I especially love, because say I had a meeting coming up or like I was going into work or something, and the hour before I was just like, oh, I'm bored, I'm by myself, like I don't know what to do, I wish I was home, or like starting to feel homesick or whatever. I could be like, you know what, I'm just going to put a load of laundry on and do the washing up. And before I knew it, I'd like have to leave for work. So it was just a really easy way to kind of, again, distract myself, but also keep myself busy and kind of learn different techniques for how to deal with myself when I was feeling in those headspaces and things. So a good way to distract yourself, but also super productive, and you'll just feel so thankful later on. Like when I would come back from work and my house was tidy, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm so happy I spent my time doing that rather than just like dwelling on the negatives. So something to consider. Another thing I do by myself, which has been a hobby for the last year, I want to say, is I spend practically maybe half a day taking Instagram photos, which I love so much. And this doesn't necessarily have to be an independent thing. You can definitely like go out with a friend and take Instagram photos together. But for me personally, it's a whole process. Like I make a whole day of it. I plan it out, you know, I like schedule in, I'm going to do Instagram photos on Saturday. I spend hours scrolling through Pinterest, finding inspiration, being like, oh, I have an outfit that looks like that, or oh, I could do this with that kind of style of pose or whatever. And I save them all on my notes, and I write out my outfit ideas and my caption ideas, and then I'll go ahead and like lay out all the outfits, and then I'll try them on to like music and stuff, and I make a whole day of it, and it's so fun. It's just super silly, and I feel like I'm pretending to be like a model on a fashion shoot, or like I'm in the girls' changing room at New Look or something, trying on all these clothes and just being so silly. So I really enjoy it, and I always feel really good after it, which is kind of strange because I take a lot of my Instagram photos in the mirror, which you would have seen if you follow me on Instagram. It's currently the theme that's going on because I'm not leaving my house. Hopefully that will change soon, but I take a lot of pictures in my mirror, so I end up spending like 3 or 4 hours just looking at myself in the mirror. And I think to some people that could seem super scary and just a nightmare, because like you just know that it's not gonna do you any good. But for some reason, just messing around, trying on all these fun clothes in ways that I wouldn't necessarily like wear them out in public or whatever, just makes me feel so fun and so good about myself. So it's something I really enjoy, and it actually puts me in a good mood for like the rest of the day because I just really love doing it. So if there's something like that, like something small, like if you said, oh, I'm taking Instagram pictures today, you could think like that it's not really a thing, you know, it's not going to take you very long, whatever. But if you have something like that you really enjoy, see if you can like lengthen out the process and make a half day of it or a whole day of it and make it a real event, because it just kind of switches up your week a little bit, you know, breaks up the days, and you can have some real fun with even like the most menial of tasks. Like even if it is just doing your washing up, why don't you try doing it to like a time limit or putting on like a really fun playlist or whatever, and just kind of, yeah, switching up those kind of daily or weekly things you do that aren't really that special, because I think sometimes by making them special you can have so much more fun with it, and that way you just feel a bit better about yourself and you find that you've had fun by yourself. And I think slowly recognizing that and slowly having more things you can do by yourself that make you feel good, you kind of slowly realize like, oh, hang on, I don't need anyone else to entertain me or to make me feel good or to have fun with, because I can do it with myself. And that's kind of what the podcast or what this episode is all about, you know, just finding ways to live alone, be by yourself, learn how to be by yourself in the best way. And I think just having fun with yourself is one of the ways that you can do that. And it's how I do it anyway, through taking Instagram photos. The same thing goes for a bath. I love to make an evening out of a bath. So if someone said to me like, oh, what are you doing this evening? I'll be like, oh, I'm having a bath. And again, some people might think that doesn't take very long, but I love to make like a real ritual out of my bath. So I could light a few candles, choose what products I'm going to be putting in my bath. I get a clean towel. I put out like a book or maybe a show that I'm watching on Netflix. I make snacks. I have a glass of wine or a nice ice drink in the bath. I make sure I have my exfoliator to hand, like all these things that just stretch out like what could be a 10-20 minute bath into like an hour bath with like an after skincare routine and stuff. You know, it just feels so much better, and by the end of it I feel completely reset and like I've had an entire Pampers session or something, or like been to the spa, even though I've just been at home by myself in the bathroom. But it's just viewing those things in a different light and making them more fun for yourself so that you can enjoy spending time with yourself. Another thing I guess that takes a while, which helps fill up some time, but again is kind of a solo task, is selling things, whether it be on Facebook Marketplace or Depop or Vinted, which I've basically been using non-stop for the last month. I really need to stop buying things on there and just keep selling, but it's so tempting because there are so many good things on there. But by like taking photos of things, choosing what you want to sell, like going through your wardrobe, having a clear out, and then listing all the items and then posting all the items, like it is quite a process. There's a lot to it. So again, it just takes up some time, makes you some money on the side, which is always great, especially if you are living by yourself, because you're usually just like accountable for your own bills and your own expenses. There's no one kind of helping you out with those. So to make a little bit of money on the side is always good fun. And I think selling stuff is just a really easy way to do that, and helps you be able to like change up your space a lot of times, because you can sell furniture or like decor and things and then buy new stuff to put in there. So just a fun way to kind of keep your space and your wardrobe up to date whilst making some money and kind of doing something by yourself for yourself. Would I say this is I'd say like one of my favourite things to do by myself is baking. Now, I don't do this very often because I find when I bake I eat it all, but I think what I need to start doing is baking and then like giving it out to people so that I don't eat it all. But I love baking so much. I love to put on a podcast whilst I'm baking. I love like rummaging around trying to find the ingredients for it. And again, it's just the process of putting your time and effort into something and seeing what happens, like what comes out of it, what you're producing, and having that end product is so fun. Again, a sense of accomplishment, but also you've been a little bit creative and had some fun with your time. And you can bake whatever the hell you like. Like there are so many options, whether you want to bake something vegan, whether you want to bake bread, whether you're doing like a sweet treat or someone's birthday is coming up, or whether like you just want to bake some scones, which is what I did the other day. Go for it. I actually ended up baking 12 scones and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to hand some of these out because I can't eat 12 scones by myself. But I definitely ate them all, so there's that. But I mean, even for Easter, you could bake some hot cross buns or some of those like Easter egg, like Rice Krispie cake things, which I freaking love. I don't actually know if they have an official name, but they're really good and really easy to bake. And again, it's a new skill set that you can build on. But I also think it's really fun to be able to bake something and then like give it to a neighbour or pop it round your nan's house or whatever. Obviously, like just drop it on their doorstep. You can't like go in and eat it with them, whatever. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, but it would be a fun task to be able to do by yourself. And again, fill up some time, listen to a good podcast, and just do something a bit creative. Then obviously reading is really fun to do by yourself, because I think it does distract you from the day-to-day. It kind of takes you out of everyday life. Although I'm saying that it probably depends on the book you're reading. Like if you're reading a non-fiction self-help book or something, it probably doesn't take you out of everyday life. But if you're reading like a fun fiction, for example, I've recently read Big Little Lies, which I absolutely loved. Such a great book. I hadn't watched the series, I have only read the book, but I really enjoyed the book. It was a really good one and quite lengthy, so it kept me busy for a good chunk of time. I also read We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, and I read that in like 4 hours, so that didn't take me as much time. But I just decided like I'm going to set aside my Sunday just to read. And I read it quicker than I thought I was going to, but it was just nice to schedule in a day of reading. Like I had never done that before, but I was like, I'm by myself, may as well just read for a while. So that's exactly what I did, and it was really nice to have that mindset of just setting aside that time just for me and my book, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of my resolutions to read 12 books a year, like one book a month, and it's been going pretty well so far. I will say I go in like ebbs and flows with reading. Like sometimes I'm really on it and I read book after book after book, and sometimes like when I'm on holiday I read like 5 books I think in a week or something. It was kind of crazy. I had never done that before. But then I'll go through real dry spells of reading. Like I think I'm reading 2 books at the moment, and in both books I'm like maybe 100 pages in, and I just can't seem to pick up the book. Like there's nothing pulling me in to read it. Like I'd rather crochet right now, but that's fine. I'm sure I'll fall back in love with that at some point. But it's really fun to be able to like make a list of books you're going to read and then pick them out in a charity shop or something. Oh, I've just given away my next solo hobby, but pick them out and then get to reading them and then sharing them with friends. That's something probably my favourite thing about reading is being able to recommend books to people and then physically like giving them my copies. I'm never one to hold on to a book or like build a book collection or anything, because unless it's like a really stellar book, I think I've got 2 books that I reckon I'll hold on to. But other than that, like I'm more than happy to have a transactional library where someone's like, oh, I've been really wanting to read that book and I have it, like I'll give it to them. Or whether I think someone will really enjoy a book, I'll just drop it round and they can have a read and pass it on to the next person, or donate it or give it back to me and I'll pass it on again. Like I'm so happy to share my books with people, and it's something me and my boyfriend's mum have done quite a lot, is like exchange books, which has been really fun. So definitely a good hobby to have, one you can do by yourself as well as share with others. But again, it's just something that helps you kind of fill up an evening or a Sunday when it's raining, and you can get really super cozy with it and just have a nice time in someone else's world for a change. So as I gave my little spoiler earlier, I think charity shopping is also one of my favourite solo hobbies. It's something I never used to do by myself. Like shopping by myself would be the worst thing in the world. Like I couldn't think of anything worse, especially when I was like a teenager. I would always ask either my sister or a friend or my mum for the most part to go with me, because I just wanted a second opinion or someone else's thoughts, or again someone to entertain me whilst I was there. But recently I've been going shopping by myself, and I don't know why I'd never done it before, but I think it was like living by myself in London for a bit. I was like, I'm just going to pop into this charity shop, and I realised like, oh, I really like that thing, I'm going to buy it. And I almost became more confident in myself because I could be decisive and I could rely on my own judgment, and that followed through in a lot of different life areas other than just shopping for clothes. But the charity shop is where I realised like I don't necessarily need a second opinion for everything. Don't get me wrong, a lot of times I still ask for a second opinion, or I call someone, and a lot of times it is still my mum, but I have got better. And I think having those kind of tasks or hobbies that you do by yourself do teach you different things in terms of like your self-confidence or trust in yourself or faith in your own skills or faith in your own judgment, whatever it might be. I think that all comes from experiencing different things by yourself, and one of those things for me has been charity shopping. And it's just a nice thing I can do either on the fly, like when I'm walking down a high street and I just want to pop into a charity shop, or again I can make a whole day of it and drive to a certain location and be like, I'm going to go to these 10 charity shops or what have you. or I can make a charity shop list of like different things I want to find in the charity shop and go on a hunt for those. There are so many different like thrifting videos online which you can take inspiration from if you want like a challenge to do in a charity shop, but there's loads of fun you can have with that, and it doesn't obviously have to be a charity shop, it can be whatever your version of a charity shop would be. But for me, it's one of my happy places and is where I will be spending a lot of my time as soon as they're back open, because I cannot wait to stop thrifting online. Okay, so they were my solo hobby ideas or prompts for you guys. If you want to try some time by yourselves, try one of those hobbies, let me know how it goes. But I'm going to be talking about some influencers now. I think I've just got like 3 who I really enjoy, who either live by themselves or just really encourage like independence. The first one is the Purple Palace. Now, I've only recently discovered her, maybe over the last month. I watch her on YouTube, and she's an American, but she lives in France, and she's an art student, and she is wacky as they come, let me tell you. She is crazy, but I kind of love it. Like, she wears whatever she likes, she does whatever she likes. She lives by herself in Paris. She's recently separated from her husband. I think she's like 26, she's pretty young. But yeah, she lives by herself in France. So like living in a foreign country, speaking a foreign language by yourself, and she's just completely owning it. Like, she's unapologetically herself. That sounded really wrong, but she's that, and it's just so fun to watch and just is really inspiring, because you think if she can have that much fun by herself, then so can I. And she has some really great tips on self-love and just spending time with yourself and not being too hard on yourself. So if you want someone like that to follow along with, I would definitely recommend her channel. I also really like watching Cheyenne Barton. I think she just calls herself Shay, but it's always really funny when you're talking about people online and they don't really say their names that often, because I'm like, oh, it sounds weird to like say her full name. But yeah, her channel's called Cheyenne Barton, and she is a artist. She does like prints and really fun designs, and so she has a lot of like studio vlogs, and she does actually live with her boyfriend and a cat, so it's not like she's living by herself. But I think because she runs her own company, and at the moment it's just her kind of running her design business, it's super inspiring. She has just rented a studio which she works in by herself, and she again has loads of hobbies that she does kind of for herself. So she does like streaming. She also does crochet. She was the reason I started crocheting, so I owe a lot to this girl, but she's so much fun. I think she lives in Seattle, and yeah, she just looks like she's having the best time. She does have ebbs and flows with her mental health, which she's super transparent about, which I really appreciate. But she, for the most part, is just a really fun place to be, and I think because she's so honest, she really makes you feel like you're hanging out with someone in her videos, which I also really appreciate. And it just makes you feel like you can be a bit more vulnerable with other people, or potentially even strangers, because that's technically what she's doing on her channel. You know, she's just being open and honest with people she's never met before, and is trying to do the best she can. So I find that super inspiring, and I would definitely recommend her channel as well. The last one, I've only watched maybe 3 or 4 of her videos, but I am a new fan, honestly. She lives in New York. I don't know her actual name, which is so bizarre, but her handle or her YouTube channel is called Where I Live. And she's really cool. She has really trendy style. I'm kind of jealous, but she is living by herself in New York, and I think there's a lot of similarities between New York and London, so I can relate to a lot about what she's talking about. And again, she's just finding ways to kind of fill up her time and learn to be by herself and learn to love herself in different ways and be confident living by herself. So I think it's a really fun process to kind of watch her explore that and kind of learn along with her. So I've really been enjoying her content recently as well. But yeah, they are all my tips, influences, tricks and advice, I guess, for learning to be by yourself. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. It's something a little bit different, but I think it's nice to have a good balance between really random and funny episodes and then some more serious and kind of, I don't know, down to earth episodes, I guess, where I'm just kind of open and honest with you guys, because I want this podcast to be a place where we can all come to kind of talk about those things that people say you should have figured out by now, and just like face that actually we don't, and we're all trying to figure it out together. And maybe I can offer you some words of advice, or maybe I can just keep you company for an hour, or maybe I am just your distraction in your kitchen filling up some background noise. Whatever it is, I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy that I can get to be part of that for you. If you are struggling by living by yourself, or learning how to be by yourself, or just spending time with yourself, maybe it's something very new to you, please feel free to DM me on Instagram, whether that is on the podcast page at To Be Candid Podcast, or whether you want to DM me personally on at ambergtaylor. Please feel free to do so, because I'm very good at responding and I love interacting with you guys. I feel like a lot closer to the podcast group rather than the YouTube clan or my Instagram clan. I don't know what it is. I just think you guys get to see a different, more vulnerable side to me, I guess. So I really appreciate that about you, and I love getting in touch with you. So please feel free to message me and open up that line of communication, whether you need someone to listen or some advice, whatever it may be. I'm more than happy to try and be that for you. Thank you so much for listening. If you have enjoyed this episode, please remember to go ahead and review me over on the podcast app or anywhere else you want to leave a review. Feel free. I'm not going to judge you, and I really love reading through them. So please go ahead and feel free to do that, as well as follow us obviously on the Instagram pages that I just mentioned. I will be back next Tuesday with a brand new episode, so I hope I will speak to you very soon. Bye.